morning, namaste, and welcome to all our participants. My name is Annie Dandavadi, and I'm a member of and legal advisor to the Cracking the Wellness Code project. Now, many of you have been attending our Saturday morning sessions, and some of you may be here for the first time. So by way of background information, Cracking the Wellness Code, or CWC as we call it, is a project of India Community Center, which is a nonprofit organization in the Bay Area. CWC's goals and objectives are reflected in our mission's summary: educate, inspire, and empower. Our goal is to help build a well-informed and empowered community wherein members use all available tools to achieve their optimal health, which is reflected in their physical, emotional, intellectual, social, occupational, and spiritual health. In other words, a holistic approach to health and wellness. We want to meet people where they are in their wellness journey and help them reach their optimal wellness index. Now, historically, both the health system and the average system, the citizen, have functioned on a reactive model. So reactive healthcare involves reacting to an adverse disease, injury, condition, or symptom. Both you and the doctor are reacting to the symptoms. Our goal is to help people move from this reactive model of healthcare to an empowered, proactive approach where a lot of adverse health conditions can either be avoided or reversed. We have an amazing team of physicians and experts from different fields and eminent guest speakers, one of whom you'll hear from a little bit later, all of who are offering their time and knowledge to help us take control of our health and wellness on all levels and develop a sense of purpose in our lives, feeling a sense of connection to people and community so that we live an empowered life and role in shaping our own wellness destiny. Now, to help us get more comfortable and relaxed, I'm going to invite Jesse Sheehan, who is a professional jazz musician based in Berkeley. Jesse has spent 4 years in India studying classical Indian music with Pandit Nayan Ghosh and other masters. He will be performing a short piece to reset the energy before we begin. So Jesse, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you. I was going to start with a bit of Rag Yaman. So.
Thank you, Jesse. That was very
you.
relaxing, soothing, and a delight to the senses.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful way to start our morning. So the Wellness Support Group has been modeled on the iceberg model of wellness, which shows key components of overall wellness. Great. So if you look at the diagram before you, the tip of the iceberg reflects the physical. So if somebody is having, physical issues, problems with their health, that generally is a culmination of what might be going on all the other levels, one or more levels combined. So we have the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, the social, occupational, and spiritual. Now, our previous sessions have focused on physical and emotional wellness. Today, we're going to turn to intellectual wellness. And I'd now like to invite our program facilitator, Dinesh Chandra, to talk about intellectual wellness and to introduce to you our amazing guest for this morning. Dinesh, like most of us, has worn different hats through the years. He has been a leader in organizational change management, having worked with several different global companies. For the past several years, he has committed his time to researching and deepening his own knowledge related to wellness and healing. He has authored several books and articles on personal and organizational change. One of them is titled, What is True Wealth and How Do We Create It? And this was based on his transformational leadership group meetings with His Holiness Dalai Lama some years ago. So here's Dinesh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let's go deeper into one aspect of the iceberg model, the intellectual wellness. Now, as you know, there's no one definition that describes it all. Perhaps a combination of your practices, your habits, and what you might consider intellectual wellness. This could include engaging in creative and mentally stimulating activities, sharing your knowledge with others, learning, expanding your knowledge, building skill sets, learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, writing a journal, and I can go on. Important thing is that your gray matter grows at any age. So like the other components of iceberg model, it plays a very important role in increasing our immunity. How? Well, when we engage creatively, we create brain chemicals that have a very positive effect. And it also is an antidote to depression, fear, and anxiety. So as I have researched on this topic and read a lot about intellectual wellness, I would say that there are three main characteristics. Number one, an open mind. Number two, creativity. And number three, humility. Now, let's take number one. How do we keep an open mind, especially when we are feeling strongly about an issue? We all have our own opinions and beliefs, usually based in our upbringing, education, worldview, etc. But those are our subjective views. And it's not necessarily the truth for all and the others. So how do we deal with this situation when someone has a totally opposing view? How do we maintain an open mind? Well, I have found that being aware of my own biases is a good starting point. Then when I have to have it, when I hear an opposing viewpoint, I can remind myself that, look, you have a strong bias here, so keep your mind open. And second thing I've learned is what we call is a compassionate listening or empathic listening. If you can listen to other person with your heart open and without challenging the idea, let it process, let it come in, accepting that idea in the moment. And sometimes I stay with that idea for a day, for a week sometimes. And after that week, I have processed that idea honestly. Then after that, I decide whether I'm going to change some of my beliefs based on that idea or not. Now, so that is one way of trying to keep an open mind. I fail at times, but I try to. All of us are creative. That's point number two. But it requires discipline to maintain that, to engage in creative activities. I think some of my author friends and I personally have felt that some people like to write every morning, but it's a discipline. You have to sit down, you have to do it. If you want to play music, I know Jesse practices hours and hours every day. So we are all creative, but we have to engage, we have to be disciplining ourselves. And the most important thing I feel to create intellectual wellness is humility. When this quality really is very important, because when we are able to go back and analyze perhaps what we did was not the best way, and we are willing to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, that really creates an open mind. And when I was thinking about this topic of intellectual wellness, who would have these qualities and be our guest speaker today? The person who instantly came to my mind is, of course, Vivek Wadhwa. And I can promise you that we are in for a real treat today. And I would like to take a few moments and share Vivek's background. He's an American technology entrepreneur and academic, as most people know, very well known in Bay Area and all over the world. He is a distinguished fellow and adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon School of Engineering at Silicon Valley, and distinguished fellow at the Labor and Work-Life Program at Harvard Law School, and I can keep on going. But let me focus on two things. He was selected by Time Magazine as one of the top 40 influencers and winner of Silicon Valley's Forum's Visionary Award last year. And he's author of 6 books, including my favorite, The Driver in the Driverless Car. And Vivek has persisted in all challenges of life, and he's just continues to give us beautiful ideas. And here is Vivek Wadhwa.
Dinesh, thank you. You know, I'm going to share some perspectives with you on where we are today. I'll tell you about what I've been through, some of the battles I've been through, including my most recent in losing my wife. And I'll tell you about what I'm doing. The message I want to leave you with is that life is all about reinvention. And there are always obstacles, there are always hurdles, there are always downs. And you're never too old to innovate or to change the world. And it doesn't matter what field you're in, you can make a global impact on everything. First of all, let me start by putting things into perspective, because this is something people don't realize. I've often said that we human beings are like, those frogs in the boiling water. The water is getting warmer and warmer, and we don't seem to realize it. No, I'm not talking about global warming. I'm talking about technology change. People don't seem to understand that we're headed towards the future of Star Trek. I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen Star Trek in one form or the other, whether it be the movie or the TV series or heard about it. Star Trek was this science fiction TV series in which humanity had reached the point that it was now reaching for the stars. It wasn't about making money anymore. It was about but life was about the pursuit of knowledge and essentially enlightenment. That was the theme of Star Trek. Star Trek was set about 400 years in the future, but believe it or not, a lot of the things we saw in Star Trek are coming true. In Star Trek, you had these communication devices called communicators. No matter which planet Captain Kirk was on, he was able to talk to people. They had replicators, these machines in which you could produce food or produce anything. You had all of these sophisticated communication devices. You had all of these sophisticated medical devices that you had a device that could diagnose your health instantly. All of these advances, these things are all happening right now. They're happening 300 years ahead of schedule. I mean, the smartphones that we carry in our pocket, these things, this is something like 50 times more powerful than the Cray supercomputers that had export controls on them. Remember Cray supercomputers that couldn't be exported to India or to the developing world? This is at least 50 times more powerful than those Cray supercomputers were. And no one even bats an eyelid when you take it across borders anymore. So we have this sophisticated device. And then communication. Captain Kirk's communicator didn't receive email. He didn't play music. He didn't do teleconferencing. So we have all of those technologies. The replicators will soon have 3D printers that you can print anything. You'll be able to print food as well. You'll be able to print anything you like. Medical devices. I have a device at home called HealthCube, and I'll tell you more about that later on which I can diagnose my own disease. I mean, I had a heart attack earlier this year, and I was able to go on my HealthCube and diagnose my troponin levels and diagnose my own health, do my own EKG. So I decided to drive to the hospital, and the doctors were shocked that I could drive to the hospital in the middle of a heart attack and tell them exactly what I was undergoing. but I have sophisticated medical devices like that in my home, right? So we have all of these incredible things at our disposal. And then on top of that, look at what we're doing right now. We're talking on a device like what we saw in Jetsons. If you remember the TV series Jetsons, in which they had these devices, they were always talking to each other. We're doing that now. I mean, the pandemic has taught everyone how to do it. It's forced us to understand this technology. But the fact is that we're talking, just like we did in science fiction. So incredible, amazing things are possible right now. Anyone can change the world. So now let me tell you a little bit about my battles. I mean, I started off as a computer programmer, and that's what my background is in writing software code. Yet, now I'm an academic at at least 2 universities, Harvard and Carnegie Mellon. Both of the universities I could never get into because I wasn't smart enough as a student. I was also at Berkeley. I was also at Stanford, Emory University. I mean, I was at like 6 universities at the same time, despite the fact I only have a mere MBA. So if I can do that, anyone can do it. It's just not rocket science. You just have to, be persistent and prove yourself. I founded companies. I was born, I was a computer programmer, yet I founded 2 companies, took one public. But, the most devastating and most, powerful experience in my life has been the loss of my wife. She had cancer. And when she was first diagnosed, I started researching it. I mean, I started learning all about the advances in genetic sequencing, in curing cancer and so on. And I got in touch with the top scientists in the world. And the more I learned, the more shocked I was at how screwed up our medical system is. I was learning after the fact, which was what the problem was. This is why I lost her, because if I had known what I know today, I would have saved her. Because what I learned was that the entire US clinical trial system is screwed up. I mean, if I could use a 4-lettered word, I would use a 4-lettered word over here. But the entire US medical system is screwed up. We do clinical trials. When you have cancer, what you do is you get your gene sequence, and then you go online and look for a clinical trial, and then you apply for the clinical trial, and you go through it, and then they give you the drugs that they want to give you. They poison your entire body with chemotherapy first, and then they do targeted therapies. And if you're lucky, you can be in one of the most advanced things. This is all screwed up. What I learned was that if I had simply, the moment she was diagnosed, and the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I'm sure many of you might have this yourself in the next few years or so, or your relatives might, or your friends might. So you need to understand the flaws of the system. Step 1, when you are diagnosed with cancer, is to have your gene sequenced, and to have the tumor sequenced, get a biopsy, get it sequenced, and then find out exactly what it is. Step 2 is get organoids created. We can actually now create, I talked about 3D printing. We can actually create 3D prints of the tumor. And then you can test the tumor with hundreds of medicines. There are companies like the one I used was Sengine, S-E-N-G-I-N-E. For $15,000, they'll take your tumor and replicate it, and they'll test it with 150 to 200 different therapies. So rather than you being the guinea pig, and they don't tell you this, doctors don't tell you this because it doesn't suit them. They would rather have you join a clinical trial because it advances medicine, or God knows what the system is all about. But if you can test your tumor against the medicines in the lab, you do not have to go through the trial and error. You don't become the guinea pig, the tumor becomes the guinea pig. So I discovered this too late, because I had, eventually by the time we had her in 2 clinical trials, and I had the tumor tested. What I learned was that the chemotherapy she was on was the wrong chemotherapy. Both of the drugs that she was given were the wrong drugs for her. Instead, there was a different drug that was more suited to her tumor. And then the question is, how do you get that drug? It wasn't available. So what I realized was that you can actually buy drugs that even though they're not, the insurance won't cover them, you can actually buy the drugs because they're typically made for other types of cancers, and you can buy the drugs off the shelf and do it. So I just spent the $10,000 and I bought the drugs. The trouble was it was too late. My wife had gotten too weak. So this is just one of the things I learned. Then I have a nephew in India who had brain cancer. And another problem happened that he couldn't join the clinical trial. He couldn't get the drug. I learned how to compound the drug. Literally, I bought the chemicals and I had the drug shipped to India. Now, it was too late also for him. It only bought him 3 months. But the fact is that I learned how to crack that system as well. So me, a computer programmer, has been learning how to hack the entire medical system of the United States. And along the way, I got a who's who of medicine to start advising me. These are top scientists at Harvard, at Mayo Clinic, Columbia University, even, what's his name, Siddharth Mukherjee, who won a Pulitzer Prize. He was guiding me through all of this. So and they were astonished that I could do what I was doing, that I could hack the system the way I did. Then, after losing her, I was in a state of shock for many months. And I said, I have to make my life's mission now to cure cancer, because I learned how to do it. I believe cancer can be cured. It's a data problem. It's a testing problem. It's an availability of medicines problem. And I know how to cure all of those. So I put together a very detailed proposal. And, I was thinking, where do I take this? In the United States, the system, again, is so screwed up that there's no hope. So I decided to take it to India. Why India? Because India is backwards in research, and they have a dire need, and they're open-minded. So I asked for a meeting with Narendra Modi. And, long story, but I got a meeting with Narendra Modi. And my wife was also, a big fan of the Dalai Lama. And, because long ago we had talked about going and meeting the Dalai Lama, she really wanted to do it. So after losing her, what I decided was that I need to get the Dalai Lama's blessings for my wife. So I asked for a meeting with the Dalai Lama. And again, long story, but I got a meeting with the Dalai Lama. And so in the same trip in October last year, I went first to meet the Dalai Lama, and I spent literally half an hour with him in his private residence, talking about my wife and what I had been through, and also curing cancer. I presented him with a plan to cure cancer. And I tell you, I spent 3 hours with him first by his side while he was meeting his devotees. Because what happens is that when you go to his house, he has a garden there where 300 people come every day, and he greets them. I was there for 2.5 hours, by his side, watching him, listening to him. I was amazed at his compassion, that he talked to every single person. He listened to them. He gave them hugs. He, gave them very thoughtful ideas, and literally cared about every single person that came to him. So when I met him, I said, Your Holiness, I came here to get blessings from my wife, Devinder. But I'm so touched that I want to, because one of the things I heard was that that the Tibetans who had come to India, what China has done to them is cruel. If you follow my Twitter feed, you'll see that I've become, very anti-Chinese, because the Chinese really have done a lot of evil to the world, including giving us this virus. But what they did to the Tibetans was also outrageous. That so you had 140,000 people who came to India, who were uprooted, including the Tibetans. And when they came to India, they started, came from a cold climate to a warm climate, getting disease, all sorts of the wellness things, issues that you talk about in this group over here, except they have no way of being diagnosed. So what I offered was, I said, I want to contribute HealthCube to you. I'm going to pay for this medical screening of the entire Tibetan population. So with HealthCube, it only costs about $1 or $2 per person, so it's entirely affordable. So I made that contribution to him. And we've already screened 30,000 Tibetans, and we're going to, I'm going to, with the pandemic, everything is on hold, but I plan to have the entire Tibetan population screened and to offer them advice. But then the Dalai Lama also agreed to support my cancer proposal. He said, Vivek, he told me about Tibetan medicine and Chinese medicine, what they were doing to cure cancer there. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but the Dalai Lama had cancer about 3 or 4 years ago. And he was treated through a combination of Western and Eastern therapies, that he was able to meditate and get back to full health. Dalai Lama is back to full health right now. He cured his own cancer. Yes, he had to come to Mayo Clinic and get treatment there, but that was just a Band-Aid. That through meditation and through power of mind, he was able to heal himself. So we agreed basically that we would do a national conference to bring together because in my proposal, part one of it is Western medicine and creating a test bed for basically it's the largest clinical trial in global history, 100,000 people, and with all sorts of new techniques is what I proposed. But part two of that, I wanted to be natural medicines, the things you're talking about, incorporating wellness into it, incorporating lifestyle changes into it, incorporating herbs into this, incorporating some of the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda and Tibetan and Chinese medicine into it. This is what the plan was. So he accepted that, and then I went. So this was on a Monday. Again, long story about how I got the meeting with him and and what happened there. But Then on Thursday, I went to Kevadia, Gujarat. That's where that big statue is, that $400 million statue that they constructed. So Narendra Modi was giving a talk to 500 IAS officers. And essentially I made a deal with his people. Normally I would get a speaking fee of $100,000. I mean, I get ridiculous speaking fees. So I would have gotten fee of about $100,000. I said, look, I'll waive my fee if I can get a meeting with Modi. And we made that deal, and I got my half an hour with Modi. And I presented Modi with this plan. And I was amazed at Modi's genius. I mean, I tell you, Modi gets a lot of criticism for some of the things he's doing, and part of it is deserved. But Modi is a genius. I mean, the guy, he used to be a tea seller. And I was talking to him about genetic sequencing. I was talking to him about new therapies. I was talking to him about this. And he, very thoughtfully says, Vivek, what you're talking will also apply to other genetic diseases, such as sickle cell anemia. And I was shocked. I was saying, I'm sitting here with the Indian Prime Minister, and he's talking about, applying genetic sequencing to sickle cell anemia. But he was dead right. So we talked about it, and he's basically told his chief scientist, Vijay Raghavan, he said, Vijay, I want you to give me a detailed proposal within 3 months on what Professor Wadhwa is saying. And then the pandemic happened and everything is on hold right now. But the point over here is that here I am, a tech guy, and here I am suffering a major tragedy. What did I do with it? I turned it into an opportunity to do good for the world, to help other people. Because what Devinder said to me, I mean, Naren Bakshi knows my wife very well. What she said to me was, Vivek, if my suffering can help others, it would have been worthwhile. So the message she left me with was, Vivek, because she knew that Devinder was everything to me. She was my soulmate. She was everything to me. I was dependent on her for everything. She says, Vivek, the only thing that's going to keep you going is doing good for the world. So she says, she told me, not in these words, but essentially to dedicate my life to giving back to the world. She says, that's the only thing that'll keep you going, is to do good for the world. So this is why I decided to put together a plan to cure cancer. Now, in the meantime, the pandemic has hit. So now I've shifted my gears now to trying to solve the pandemic. Not to solve the pandemic, but to help businesses restart. Because if you look at what's happening in India right now, you have hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people now who are on the roads. They're being displaced, these migrant workers. And then when the pandemic is over, there's going to be an economic depression worldwide. Unless we can get people back to work, we're screwed, basically. We're going to have a depression. More people are going to die from hunger and poverty and despair than who then are going to be killed by this pandemic. So I've basically been now putting together a plan, which I'm piloting in Mexico with one of the largest companies over there, and hopefully in India as well. I have a call this evening with one of the largest companies in India to pilot this. And what the plan basically is that, for COVID, so basically I'll share with you how we can get businesses restarted. That the focus right now seems to be on limited restarting, this social distancing, these apps and so on. Yes, we need to do all of that. But if you look at certain markers, for example, with my heart attack, I'm in the high risk group. Many of you are in the high risk group because you have a weak immune system. You have diabetes, you have obesity, you have a number of markers. Well, we know what those markers are. With this device that I'm talking about with HealthCube, I can diagnose those markers. Everything from D-dimer tests to the cholesterol test, all of that I can do, and it costs about $2 to do the entire range of testing in India. So the plan is that you test every individual before they go back to work, and you give them a classification, low, medium, or high risk. And it's very easy to do that. Basically, if you look at certain factors, you can determine who is more likely to die from the virus. It's only 1 or 2% of the population that will die from the virus. I'm being very brutal over here. I mean, if you want to put this on YouTube, I mean, I could be misquoted over here. But the fact is that it's people like me who are the ones who need to be quarantined. It's not the majority of the population. But so the solution over here is that you identify people who are at the highest risk by looking at their health factors right now. You give them extra special attention. You give them extra quarantine. Step 2 is at the antibiotics. The fact is that about a quarter of the population in New York City has already been exposed to the virus. They have built antibodies. Now, there's a lot of skepticism about antibodies because China shipped junk into the United States, complete junk. I mean, this again, I'm being anti-Chinese here, but they flooded the market with these antibody testing kits, which are not accurate. I mean, which are 10, 20% accurate at best. whereas you need 90% accuracy. But the fact is that if you have been exposed to the virus, then you are immune to it for at least a year. It could be longer, but at least a year you're immune to it. And if you get the virus again, it's going to be, the symptoms are going to be minor. They're not going to be anything like what you had before. So let's start now screening people for antibodies. And it's not one test again, because the best rapid tests are 90% accurate. So that Healthcare is building a test that'll be ready hopefully in July, which will be 90% accurate. It's a guide. What you do is you do it 2 or 3 times, because that 99% accuracy becomes 99.9% accuracy. And you can be sure that if you have the antibodies, it's safe for you to restart work. So my proposal to these companies is that you screen every employee for risk factors, and then you test for antibodies. If they have low risk, and if they have antibodies, then they can be on the front lines. They can be the cashiers, they can be the tellers, they can be the nurses, they can be the delivery people, and they won't contaminate other people also because they're immune to it. The rest of the people, you let them work from home. You give them special treatment. You give prior to, if they develop any symptoms, you give them the detailed COVID tests, and you give them special treatment. And because in the developing world, for example, these tests for COVID are very expensive. They cost as much as $100. And India is showing off about what low percent of people who get the COVID actually get the test actually are tested. That shows that the tests were wasted, that they wasted a lot of money on testing where you could have identified people through risk factors and tested the people who need it most. So I essentially put together an entire plan. I'm piloting that in a couple of different countries right now. And, again, this might fail as well. My cancer thing didn't go anywhere. It got sidelined because of the pandemic. It could be that this goes nowhere, but all I can do is try. All right. All I can do is take all of my energy, all of my intellect, all of my capabilities, and try to save the world. I may fail, but at least I would have, done what I left this world doing what I can for this, what I can for it. So I'm not sitting back and declaring defeat to anything. I'm taking every obstacle that comes my way,
It's under Zoom
using it
settings.
to uplift humanity.
Oh.
All right, Q&A. I think I've run over in time.
No, Vivek, what an amazing story. I mean, I knew parts of it, but it's amazing that in the face of adversity and in the face of challenges, how you have reconstructed and to serve the world. I mean, it's just an amazing story.
Dinesh, all of us can do that. You see, I have no special powers. I'm just a tech guy. I'm not smarter than my friends are, right? I'm not smarter than you people are. Most of you think that I'm over the hill, I'm retiring, my kids, feel sorry for me. Forget all this nonsense. Get out there and change the world. The things I'm talking about, you can learn. What do I know about cancer? I'm a computer programmer in background. I did an MBA. I don't know anything about cancer. Yet the proposal I put together now has the support of the Dalai Lama. He's committed to me that he'll hold that conference. It has the support of Modi. And like I said, the ball is in Vijay Raghavan's court. And Vijay is distracted by the pandemic. But if I can cure cancer, and I believe cancer can be cured, I believe that I can cure cancer. If I can do it, why can't you folks do things like that? All of you have unique capabilities. All of you have unique strengths. All of you have unique knowledge. Use it, learn, and then give back to the world.
Well, Vivek, we are so connected to you on this because me and my wife both, and all my friend circle, I'm passionate about healing and wellness. And I think I'm with you on trying everything, like the Western medicine, whatever we know, the latest, and Eastern ideas. I mean, there are people in this country, and I'm getting so convinced that what Dalai Lama did through meditation and through mindfulness and all the other things, it's within the reach of an average person. You and I can do it. And
Yeah,
not only that, at CWC, you'll be very pleased to know that there are many health heroes, and Naren Bakshi is one of them. He's he's here with us in this call. And the health heroes have done amazing things simply by learning everything they can. So I come back to the intellectual wellness, and it seems like you are totally engrossed in your intellectual ventures. And I'm very pleased to hear that, because that is the best way to keep your whole physical self have a strong immunity. Because when you are so creatively engaged in all these things and all these travels you're describing, there's no time to really worry or fear or do anything else. But again, I come back. Did you always have this kind of an open mind, or was it an effort which you realized that, I need to have an open mind, and you cultivated that? Is it something that can be cultivated, or you're born with it?
Dinesh, this is something you develop. I mean, you basically have to realize your capabilities, the fact that there's nothing stopping you. I mean, earlier in my life, I used to go by the rules and believe that you had to, move up the hierarchies and so on. I didn't think I could change the world. Now, I realize that I have nothing to lose. So, did I develop an open mind? All of us can have open minds. There's nothing special about me. There's nothing unique about me. All of us can do what I can do. All of us can learn and grow. The knowledge of the universe is all available to you. I want you to read my book, Driving the Driverless Car. If some of you can't afford it, email me and I'll send you an illicit copy of it, which I'm not supposed to share. But if you can afford it, it's only like $15 on Amazon. Get the book, read it. It'll teach you about what's possible. And it'll teach you about, the technologies which are helping us create the future of Star Trek. So open-mindedness, all of us, open-minded is just a word. I mean, all of us can learn and grow. We just have to realize that we have the capability, we have the ability to do this. If tomorrow the pandemic is over and some other crisis comes, I'm going to do all I can to solve that crisis. It's a matter of going where life takes you and fighting every battle as it comes. Don't give up on any. This is what actually, I have to give credit to my wife for that, because I've been through many battles in my life and she would never let me concede defeat. This heart attack I had was my second heart attack. After my first heart attack, I actually got into battle with my venture capitalist. And she said, Vivek, you have to fight, because if you give up without fighting, you'll never be happy. You have to fight, and you have to do what you can to win and to better the world. So this is what all of you have to do.
So Vibhay Sinha has a question for you. So Vibhay, please go ahead and ask.
Yes, Mike, it's a quick comment more than a question. I think what I understand looking at Vivek and what he was saying is that he has humility, which is what you commented on earlier. And I believe that one has to have humility to do all those things. And this is just a comment on what I felt as he was talking. Obviously, it was a great talk.
Maybe on that point, let me comment on that point, because I know a lot of billionaires. I mean, these people you read about, including Elon Musk, and these people, I know them. I call them friends, all right? We've hung out, we've gone drinking together, right? I tell you, the most humble people are the most intelligent people are the most humble. It's the ones who are insecure who are not humble. I mean, there are a bunch of billionaires I know who are also complete assholes, who got to where they are by luck and timing. And this shield that they put up of arrogance and lack of humility is simply a shield to cover their insecurity and their stupidity. So the good people are the ones who are the most humble.
Okay, here's a question from Indu Agarwal. Indu?
Yeah, Vivek, that was an awesome story and totally resonated with me, because I have gone through a lot of health issues and I have discovered my power. And what I wanted to know is, did you try anything related to energy modalities? There's something called Body Talk system that has solved a lot of problems for me.
And I probably need to do that. I mean, when I went to India, I also, in this, the trip, I made actually 2 trips to India over the last few months. The first one was to meet Modi and the Dalai Lama. And then, I came back and started getting depressed again. And I had a heart attack. So I actually went to the Art of Living ashram in Bangalore. Why Art of Living? Because I had some friends over here recommended it. I would have gone to any of these things to try meditation and Ayurvedic food and all of that. And it really works. I need to get more into it. I need to try some of the things you're talking about. So, I'm guilty. I need to be doing more over there. I've been so focused on other things that I haven't been looking after my own health in that sense. But you are right. We need to be looking into all of these treatments and therapies, and the natural treatments are the solution to a lot of our ailments.
Yeah. Can I contact you and have a discussion with you?
Sure. Wadhwa@cmu.edu. WADHWA at cmu.edu.
I will do that. Thank you.
Sure.
So
I believe Naren had a question.
So Vivek, let me tell you, you have few other things going for you. But there's one thing that I want to emphasize. You start doing it. World needs you much longer than you are taken care of. I know you, I've known your wife, and it was her courage that made you what it is. So I remember her very much. So courage is very important. If you have fears, you're not going to do things. So clearly, the only request I have of you, and this is as a friend, as a well-wisher, whatever we want to do, the best purpose in life doesn't work if we are not healthy ourselves. So clearly, you know me.
Naren, you inspired me to go hiking. I go hiking at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm not climbing that mountain you used to climb near your house, but there are other, great parks. So that's something that I do quite consistently. And that's, you've been pushing me to do that one.
You involved. And the reason I'm saying this is you really are one of the great examples of people that have multiple times changed. I mean, change is important. I've changed some, but you are a great example. Now, that means you have purpose of life, and that requires courage. Whenever you change something, naturally there are some insecurities. Now, if you can remove those insecurities, you do better, of course. So you are a courageous man with a purpose in life, and you're not afraid. I mean, you can go to Modi, you can go to whoever. What will happen? They will say no, right?
That's what you have to do. Basically, you have to realize that you have nothing to. This is what I'm living my life right now. That the only purpose I have is to do good for the world. And what do I have to lose? I mean, so I write to who's who, and my attitude, what do I have to lose? Worst case, they say no. Worst case, I fail. So me claiming I'm going to cure cancer, what do I have to lose? Worst case, it doesn't happen. Best case, I may be able to make an impact. And now the pandemic, so like I said, I've got 2 major companies right now signed up to do it. Worst case, it doesn't work. And what have I lost? Nothing. I had nothing better to do anyway than to try to save the world. So you get
Vivek himself. Remember, he said to you, and I said, no, I won't accept. We will have to get him. Right? And we
Yes, absolutely, Naren. And thanks for all your help. Now there's another comment coming up here. Please go ahead. This is a resolution work at msn.com. You wanted to make a comment? Okay, Vivek, there's another request. If you can share your email address once again.
Wadhwa at Carnegie Mellon University, cmu.edu.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else would like to ask any questions? Please either put it in chat box or in your raise your hand. So Vivek, one thing I would say that CWC and this Crack the Wellness Code, this whole group is such a wonderful place for what you have described. I mean, it couldn't have been better said, because we have doctors, and we have entrepreneurs, and we have professionals, we have people from various walks of life. And I personally am focused on how to help people with the lifestyle changes, because I believe lifestyle changes and, changing your nutrition, changing your diet, changing your stress levels, managing them well, can make a huge difference. But I'm always open to suggestions from any corner which it comes from, whether it's ancient wisdom like Ayurveda you mentioned. And we have wonderful Ayurvedic practitioners in our group as well. And we have wonderful yoga teachers in our group. Actually, ever since we started this program, I have joined one. And every morning at 7:45, I'm doing yoga, and it's just beautiful opportunities. So at this time, if you would like to comment again on, I noticed that you were openly able to say, I'm referring back now to your crusade for the women in the Bay Area and in Silicon Valley, and how you and that also inspiration came from your wife, because I remember you were in a meeting and you were mostly men, and she said, how come there's no women? And that inspired you to really start that crusade. What really struck me is that you were able to go back, and you were able to, in all your humility, you were able to say, well, perhaps that was not the best thing. So is this, again, this humility was always part of you, or this also you cultivated?
No, this is something my wife beat into me, because she made sure that because I've been pretty well known and get TV appearances and so on. She would make sure that it never went to my head. So I have to give her 100% credit for that. Humility doesn't come that easily. You have to realize that your ego is just your ego, and that you're going to basically be nothing. And so that was a lesson that she would always be pushing into my head. And this is why even now, I realize that I'm going to be dirt, I'm going to be nothing. So you make the most of it. So what I try to do is, while I'm successful, I'm try to help all the people I can, because I know the successful will not last. So you try to make the maximum impact you can while you can. You give back to the world while you can.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, I would, to that notion that, how I have come to believe that husband and wife, like in India and Bollywood movies, they always say that they are made in heaven. And I have come to realize that sometimes we don't see it. We don't understand that. But your spouse could be, even though challenging at times, as we all know, but it could be your biggest teacher in life. If you're open, I always say you can create 1 + 1 infinity, or you can create 1 + 1 0. And if both parties, and I think the key I have found is that most of us are in the victim stage in the early part of our life. We are blaming other people. And then I think we discover that we can empower ourselves, and we don't have to really blame. We take responsibility for our life. And then I think these life events happen, and sometimes we open our heart, and we kind of, like you described the experience, or we have our spouses, who help us surrender our that ego, and then we open our heart. And then I think the final stage, which you are describing, when we surrender to the higher purpose, and the kind of work you were saying, that every mishap, every challenge in your life, you can turn it around, and you can serve the world to a higher degree, to a newest level. So my question to you now is that do you also have a spiritual practice, surrendering yourself, which is the stage 4, or the phase 4 people call, the victim to empower, to opening your heart, and to surrendering to the highest purpose? Seems like this is, that's what you're doing. But I just wanted to know, like, do you meditate, or do you have any particular practice, or what do you do? You follow any particular ritual, routine?
No, I wish I was that good. I'm just going where life takes me, and I do try to meditate whenever I can. And I, essentially look in my heart for the answers whenever I can, and I listen to people whenever I can. So I'm completely imperfect. But when it comes to humility, like you said, I'm going back to the Dalai Lama. To his people, he's God. But he's the most humble person I've ever met in my life. I was so touched by him, literally, that I couldn't believe it. That how much, and he genuinely cared for people. And he never considered himself, in this, like I said, he's talking about quantum physics. He's talking about, cancer therapies. This is the Dalai Lama. A spiritual leader. So, but the fact is that, there was true compassion there, true caring of people. And then Modi, again, for all the criticism he receives, in the conversation I have with him, twice he says, agar aap ko time hai, to, he's talking to me as if I'm busier than him. I says, I said, Prime Minister, I have all the time in the world. I started off the conversation with him, saying, look, my Hindi isn't very good. He says, मैं तो हिंदी बोलूँगा, आप इंग्लिश में बोलो, मैं समझता हूँ सब कुछ. But he was so down to earth, with me, and he was as humble as could be. This is the Prime Minister of India. So what I'm telling you is that the greatest people are the most humble, because they don't get fooled by their own press, by their own aggression. The ones who are, who don't show humility, they're full of shit. Essentially, they're the ones who shouldn't believe, and they're basically doing it out of their own insecurities.
No,
Everything.
I couldn't agree more with you. In fact, at Dalai Lama, we have at several occasions, we used to take our transformation leadership groups over there to Dharamshala. So I know exactly the place you're describing. And in one of them, the Dalai Lama agreed to meditate with our group. So we were meditating, and after that, somebody asked him, there was a question answer session. And that's where we asked him, what is true wealth and how do we create it? And that's how the book came out, which I co-edited later on. But talk about the humility. So he's describing the several tenets of Buddhism. Now here is Dalai Lama describing Buddhism. So he says, number one, this, number two, this, number three, this. And then he scratches his head and he says, number four, I forgot. And he started laughing. Now, can you imagine here is the prophet who is the master of Buddhism, and he forgets the four tenets of Buddhism, and he's laughing about it. And I think you described his compassion and humility. I think if we can all learn from that, and in intellectual wellness, not only it's good for our intellect, it is also good for our body, because I think humility does a lot to improve our immunity. If we can simply say, appreciate people and thank them. So there is one question which has come out as a suggestion, is that whether you have explored Cuba biotechnology. This is from Adolfo, and he's saying it's a poor country, but because of the blockade, many of the Medicare don't make it to the US. So have you explored Cuba? For the proposal you have? It's a small country, and you can.
Yeah, I was hoping to visit Cuba, but I don't think I'm ever going to make it there.
So, well, Adolfo, you have any other suggestions, or let me unmute you if you want to say anything which could help. Adolfo, are you there? Okay, you have.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear. Yeah,
okay.
Please.
Thank you, Vivek, for this great talk. Very motivational. I'm the one who posted as a health hero. I've going on 10 years of stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. And lastly, I had they found a tumor in my brain last year. That was removed, and just had an MRI yesterday, clean. So I thank you for your crusade. Yes, the medical system here in the US is very tough, very difficult.
Screwed up,
as you said, yes. But I went to part of my crusade is I've been to Cuba several times. They have a great biotechnology program. They have medicines that stop the transmission of HIV from mother to child. They have medicine that prevents amputees when they have diabetes. They actually have an immunotherapy in trials in New York right now that the US is in collaboration after Obama. Now with Trump, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it was in phase 3 clinical trials. So that was my suggestion. I heard you say that you probably never make it, but I would recommend, if you could, they do have a great program. I went there to study their educational medical systems, much different than the US. They're all about prevention. Yeah.
Adolfo, I have no idea where life is going to take me, but if I can get to Cuba, I'd love to go there. So it was one of the places which Tavinder and I really wanted to visit, but we never made it there for whatever reasons.
But I also want to commend you on, to bringing in something I've done is use the Western and the Eastern, and, meditation has been a big part of it. I'm about to embark on completing a yoga teacher certificate program. I do believe in yoga and that spiritual power. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Adolfo. And Annie, you have a question?
Actually, Dinesh, can you see if you can bring in the gentleman at Resolution Works? I think there was an issue with his mic.
Yeah, I tried. While we are trying to get him to come down, I don't see him on my chat box. Som, if you can get him on board. In the meantime, Vivek, we are so aligned what you're describing. So I invite you to join us here at CWC, and your Health Hero program. You can look at it. There are several programs, but the whole idea is to take the Eastern ideas and the Western ideas, the ancient ideas, the cutting edge ideas, modern ideas, and bring it together. And so we need your help. And what you have said today, we're very encouraged, very inspired, and hope you can join us and work with us in whichever field you like. So if there are 5 more minutes left, any other question anyone has? And Vivek, I'm going to give you some more time to kind of summarize it. And anyone else has a question? Last chance before I turn it back to Vivek.
Stuart.
Annie, you want to ask? Oh,
Can I? This is Asha.
Yeah, Asha, go ahead.
Hi, that was a very inspirational speech, Vivek. I wanted to let you know that I had a similar experience in losing my spouse when I was only 42 due to a heart attack. And you're absolutely right. When we stop looking at ourselves and looking at others, I felt like I was able to heal myself better, but nothing, nowhere, anything compared to what you're doing. But this has been so inspirational that I want to do more for those others who have done and gone through similar things, and also from a health perspective. And I definitely will email you about some of the meditation stuff that have helped me also, unclutching and other things.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so
Asha.
much for this session, Dinesh.
Thank you so much. And once again, we remind everyone that we meet every Saturday morning and we talk about how to build your immunity especially in these challenging times. And so far we have covered the physical, where we talked about the meditation, mindfulness, nutrition, sleep, and diet. And then we talked about the emotional wellness, where we talked about how to get rid of your victimness and empower yourself and develop emotional intelligence. And today we talked about intellectual wellness and how we can keep an open mind and how can we maintain humility and how can we engage in creative activities. And now I turn it back to Vivek to give us a concluding summary and a comment.
You know, the concluding message is that all of you can make a real impact on the world. I mean, if you reset your lives to make it all about helping others and giving back to the world, you're going to get more happiness and feel more satisfied than anything else you can do. We're not here to build wealth. We're not here to make it all about ourselves. We're here to make the world a better place. So do what you can for others in the world, and you'll find that that's what gives you the greatest reward. In my whole life, I've always found that the more I've given, the more I've received. The world has done a lot for me, only because I've been trying to do for the world. So that's the type of thinking all of you should have. And if you do it, I'm sure you'll be a lot happier and healthier. And don't let anything stop you. There's no reason why all of you or any of you can't change the world.
Thank you so much, Vivek, for taking the time to joining us. And I look forward to, and the whole CWC looks forward to working with you and taking your message to the whole world. And so thanks for your inspirational message today. Annie, would you like to say anything?
No, just again, thank you, Vivek. You were really inspiring. And I think your message resonated with just about everybody on this webinar today. Because I think it's easy, when challenges come your way to kind of get into that, self-sympathy or poor me or I'm lost mode. And I think if we just kind of look at that as a lesson from life and an opportunity to really, pick up the rein and keep moving forward. So I think you've inspired a lot of people today. And definitely we look forward to your future involvement in whatever capacity you'd like to with Cracking the Wellness Code. We're all volunteering in this effort, and the idea is to give people, that power, let them take control of their lives, where it's their wellness and again on, any one of those dimensions that we talked about. So we look forward to working with you again. And thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar this Saturday morning. And do check out our website. There's a lot of different ways and opportunities that you can be involved in this movement. And I think the more people that join us, the more powerful we can become and the more lives we can impact in a very positive manner. So have a wonderful rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you all. And I want to acknowledge Som Chatterjee, who always works behind the scene. So you can't see him, but he is the one who does all the organizational work and all the details. So thank you, Som, for your wonderful, incredible work. Thank you all. Have a wonderful week. Keep practicing and see you next Saturday to talk about occupational wellness. Bye-bye.
Thank you.